Well, hello, welcome again to our reading of the Greek New Testament, and I'm just reading through Philippians chapter 1, and I got up to verse 12. Verses 12 to 20 form a section here describing Paul's circumstances and attitude. So he says, Genoskein de humas boulamai adelphoi, hoti ta kat eme malon es proskopen to euangeliou. Eleluthen, hosti tus desmus mu phanarus in Christo genesthai, en holo to praetorio, kai tois loipois passin, kai tus pleonas tona delphone in curio pepoithotas tois desmois mu perisoteros tolman aphobos ton logon lalain. It's a fairly long sentence here. But I wish you to know, brethren, that ta kat eme is a Pauline expression. It's an idiomatic expression you'll see elsewhere in Paul. It means my personal situation, my affairs, probably reference here to his imprisonment. So I wish you to know that my personal affairs, and the Marlon perhaps even more, literally have come resulting in the advancement of the gospel. So the eleluthen probably you could take with the ace, so have come into and hence resulted in. So I wish you to know, brethren, that my situation rather has resulted in the advancement of the gospel. Prokopain, interesting word. The kop is probably connected with kopto, and this word may be a military metaphor here, or military term for an army cutting through a forest in order to advance. We still use the expression to cut through, meaning to advance, in English, and that's possibly what this original sense was, generally translated as advancement. Now we get hosti plus the infinitive, and we get one infinitive here, and we're getting another infinitive down here, the tolman. And the in Christo here is slightly awkward. Anyway, literally it says, so the advancement of the gospel, so that my bonds literally have become manifest, have become well known in Christo. This might mean because of my faith in Christ, in the whole of the Praetorian, and to all the rest, all the remaining people. So the point he's making here is that the fact that he's in prison because of his belief in the Messiah has become well known in the whole of the Praetorian Guard and to everyone else. The expression is just slightly odd here. It's literally, my bonds might be made manifest in Christ. Perhaps we have to understand because of my faith in Christ. The fact there is mention of the Praetorian Guard here has been used as strong evidence that the writing of this took place in Rome, because there doesn't appear to be any evidence for the presence of the Roman Praetorian Guard elsewhere outside of Rome, at this time anyway. So again, I'll leave you to look at the commentaries on this one. Kai tus pleonas, and the greater number, this is a comparative pleon from bigger, so, and the greater number of the brethren. And again, the Greek is slightly odd here, so it's either so that the greater number of the brethren in the Lord, pepoithotos, well, perhaps encouraged by, it's literally trusting in, so perhaps trusting in my bonds, they have dared to speak the word. We get two adverbs more to speak the word without fear, perisoteros, more earnestly. Perisos means more abundantly, but perhaps more earnestly here. So again, this is a difficult verse. One can also put the break in here and translate it as and the majority or the greater number of my brethren, trusting in the Lord, taking this then with the enkuriou, and then we can take the tois desmois as a dative of cause. Because of my bonds, they have dared to speak the word without fear more eagerly. So two possible interpretations there, and again you'll need to look at the commentaries on this as to which way you take it. The pepoithotas is a participle. It's from pepoitha, which is we've seen earlier on, it's a fossilized form. It's connected originally with patho. It means I trust in. So it's either relying on my bonds, relying on the fact that I'm in prison, so they've been stirred up to preach the gospel even more earnestly, or it may be trusting in the Lord because of my bonds, etc. Tines men kai diaphthonon kai erin tines de kai di eudokian ton Christon ke resusin. We get a semicolon here, so probably a good place to break here. So the tines, we're never told who these tines were. For some, it may be these may be Jewish Christians who insist on legalism. We don't really know. Remember that Paul didn't found the church at Rome, so it's not clear who these tines were. It may be simply a case that there were people there that were challenging his authority. Anyway, we get tines men, tines de. So there are certain ones, they proclaim the Messiah both through envy and eris, strife, and there are certain ones who do it dieudokian, through goodwill. This is a biblical word, it's not classical. So there are some who proclaim the Messiah through envy and strife, and others who proclaim it through goodwill. Hoimen ex agapes erdotis hoti es apologian to euangelion kemai, hoi de ex eretheas ton Christon kat angelusi uk hagnos, oiomenoi thlipsin egeren tois desmois mu. We get a kind of chiasmus here. So we've got, in the first bit, we've got certain ones who do it in a bad way and certain ones who do it in a good way, and then we get a swap here. Some proclaim the gospel as a result of love, knowing that kemai, I am lying, understand here, as apologian, with regard to my defence of the gospel. Apologia is a law court term to defend yourself, so this is the abstract defence. So knowing that I lie, understand here, with regard to my defence of the gospel. But others, and now we get the negative side, others proclaim the Messiah as a result of faction or partisanship. There is a word erithos, which is a hired labourer, and this may have connections here, generally translated as faction or partisanship. Kat angelo, translated here proclaim. It's rare in classical Greek, and when it does occur, it generally has the sense of to denounce, with the kata, to give a report against somebody. But here it seems to be just in the sense of, the meaning seems to be weak, and it's just proclaim. It turns up again in the next verse where it clearly means to proclaim, so I think that must be the meaning here. So some proclaim the Messiah as a result of partisanship or faction, uk hagnos, not in a pure way, knowing or thinking that agero is to raise, but here perhaps to stir up, raise up, thlipsis, affliction, tois desmois mu, literally for my bonds, but we translate for me in chains. It's an example of a literary term of hyperlage, which is a really transposition of two elements, the me and the bonds. So it's really here thinking that they will stir up tribulation or misery for me in my bonds. We get a swapping for the person and the bonds. Tigar plain hotipanti tropo eti profase eti elathea Christos cat engelatai kain tuto cairo. For what of it, except that in every way, whether by pretense, this is prophasis, means pretense, or by truth, the Messiah is proclaimed, passive. It's the same verb we had up here, so it must really have the same meaning. And in this Cairo I rejoice. Alakai karesamai. Oida ga hoti tutomoi apobesatai es soterian dia tes humain diesios kai epikoregias tu pneumatos Jesu Christou kataten apokadokian kai elpidamu hoti en udeni ais gunthesamai al en passe paresia hos pantoti kai nun megalon thesatai Christos ento somati mu 80 dia soes 80 dia thanatu. So again another long passage here. So in this I rejoice, but also keresamai I will rejoice, for I know that this apobasatai, this will turn out from apobino. It's an expression that's not used otherwise in Paul, but it's perfectly good Greek. So I know that this will turn out for me regarding it will turn out for me for salvation. It will turn out to me as salvation through your diesis, through your request, or perhaps your prayer, through your request and your epikarias, your support, or the support of the Spirit of Jesus the Messiah. Epikoragia it's only here in the New Testament and also in Ephesians 4:16. The corresponding verb, however, does occur 5 times in the New Testament. It's not classical Greek; it's post-classical. The choregos does occur in classical Greek, and choregia occurs in classical Greek. It refers to the chorus leader, the choregos. And this was the person who financed the chorus in a Greek play, in the production of a Greek play, and they had to pay for, hire and train the chorus. So choregia then came to mean the sense of service or support. The word does turn up in a later papyrus where it's used of providing for a widow, and apparently it is used in medical literature, used of a ligament which acts as a support to a broken limb. So epikoragia here is that it's quite a pretty word, and it means just here support. So with regard to, for I know that this will turn out to me for salvation on account of your prayer, your request, and the support of the Spirit of Jesus Christ. According to the apokoradikian, the longing expectation, this again is a rare word, it's not classical, only occurs once elsewhere in the New Testament in Romans 8:19. So it has the sense of expectation, of looking forward to something. So according to the longing, expectation, and my hope, that in nothing will I be put to shame, so that in no way I'll be put to shame, or perhaps in no respect, but in all parasia, all openness, as always, so as pantoti, as always and also now, Christ will be magnified, will be made, megas, will be made large, will be magnified in my body, and we get 80-80, whether through life or whether through my life or whether through my death. And that's the end of that little section from Philippians 1.